Hey everyone, ready to go beyond the surface with Thor. We're about to take a deep look at this thunder god.
And trust me, there's a lot more to uncover than meets the eye.
I bet. We're talking about a figure who shows up all over the place. What kind of sources are we talking about here?
We've got Roman historians encountering him for the first time, then these epic Icelandic sagas, even some modern folklore that still whispers his name.
Wow, so we're literally spanning centuries with this one.
We are. So, to kick things off, let's go back to the very beginning. The earliest mentions we have of Thor actually come from Roman writers.
Really? But I thought those guys were obsessed with Jupiter and Mars and all their own gods.
Oh, they were. But they had this system called Interpretatio Romana where they tried to make sense of other cultures' gods by comparing them to their own pantheon.
So they'd look at a powerful god with a hammer and be like, well, he must be like Jupiter or maybe Hercules.
Exactly. It gives us a glimpse into how the Romans viewed the world, but it also makes you wonder how much they truly grasped about other cultures' beliefs.
It's like trying to explain a color to someone who's been blind their whole life. You can use words, but the experience is totally different.
And that's just with one culture. Imagine trying to track a god across different times and languages.
Yeah, I've seen Thor's name spelled in so many ways. Thunar, Thunor, Donar. It's like a giant game of telephone.
It is. But each variation tells a story. It shows how Thor's worship spread and transformed across different Germanic groups. You can actually trace these names back to a Proto-Germanic root, Funaraz.
Which just means thunder, right?
Yep. So even though his name changed, the core idea remained the same. A god of thunder commanding the skies.
Makes sense. Now, you can't talk about Thor without mentioning his iconic hammer, Mjolnir.
Absolutely. That hammer is more than just a weapon, though.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What else did it represent?
For the Norse people, it was a powerful symbol of protection. Imagine wearing a tiny hammer as a pendant, constantly reminding you of Thor's power to ward off evil.
Wow, like a divine good luck charm.
Exactly. And think about the time period. Christianity was spreading through Scandinavia, so you literally had the hammer of Thor competing with the Christian cross.
That's wild. Wielding a hammer would have been a real statement of faith during that time.
It would have been a bold declaration, and those statements were important in a world full of giants and monsters.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. Let's get into those stories, those epic adventures from the Icelandic sagas.
Those are where things get really good.
Are those the ones with all the battles and tricks and crazy creatures?
Oh, absolutely. The Poetic Edda especially is like a greatest hits collection of Norse mythology.
Mm.
Vivid imagery, action-packed scenes, a little bit of humor too.
Okay, give me a preview. What kind of adventures are we talking about here?
Well, there's one where Thor goes fishing for the Midgard serpent. Not your average weekend trip.
Hold on. He went fishing for a giant serpent. I need to hear more about this.
Picture it. Thor sets out on a small boat using a giant's head as bait. He hooks this massive serpent, Jörmungandr, who's so huge it encircles the entire world.
Okay, that is one epic fishtail.
He nearly pulls it up too, but the line breaks and the serpent escapes, foreshadowing their final battle at Ragnarok, the end of the world.
So even in losing that fight, there's this feeling that it's not over yet.
Exactly. It's just one thread in the grand tapestry of these myths connecting the present to the ultimate fate of the cosmos.
Wow, okay. I need to hear more about these stories. What else showcases Thor's strength and his role as a defender?
One that comes to mind involves some unusual eating habits. Thor had these goats.
Goats!
Yeah, Tengrisnir and Tungnanostra. They pulled his chariot and he could actually eat them at night.
He ate his own transportation.
And then use his hammer to bring them back to life the next morning.
That's both bizarre and kind of fascinating. What was the meaning behind that?
Well, it speaks to this idea of cycles in Norse mythology, death and rebirth, even for animals. It wasn't about cruelty, it was about the interconnectedness of life, the constant renewal.
So even a chariot had these deeper layers of meaning.
Exactly. And speaking of characters, we can't forget Loki. Loki the trickster god.
That's the one, always stirring things up, causing a bit of chaos.
Thor's adopted brother, right?
Yes, and their relationship is fascinating. A constant back and forth between alliance and rivalry.
Like a cosmic buddy cop movie.
Oh, yeah. Thor, the strong warrior, and Loki, the unpredictable trickster. It makes for some of the most entertaining myths.
So what's one of their most memorable encounters?
Well, there's the time Loki tricked Thor into dressing up as a bride to get his hammer back.
Wait, Thor in a wedding dress?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I have to hear this one. What happened?
So Thor's hammer gets stolen by this giant, Thrym.
Of course.
And Thrym says, I'll only give it back if I get to marry Freya.
The goddess Freyja.
The one and only. But The gods weren't having that, so they hatched this plan.
To dress Thor up as a bride.
Exactly. He's this massive, very unconvincing bride sitting at the wedding feast, devouring whole oxen and barrels of mead.
The giants must have been confused, to say the least. But then, as they're about to bless the bride with Mjolnir, Thor grabs it, drops the charade, and unleashes his fury.
What a wedding crasher. So it's not all serious battles. These myths have a good sense of humor, too.
Right. They capture the full range of human experience. And speaking of ranges, we can't forget about Jotunheimer, the land of the giants.
The realm of chaos.
The desolate, unforgiving landscape, home to all sorts of monsters constantly threatening the order of the cosmos.
That's where Thor really gets to shine.
It is. Defending Asgard and Midgard from those giant threats, it's a classic hero's journey into the unknown.
Confronting danger to protect what he cares about.
And those journeys aren't just physical, they represent that eternal struggle between order and chaos, reminding us that even the strongest among us have to fight to maintain balance.
It seems like every element in Thor's world tells a story. The companions, the rivals, the landscapes.
That's the beauty of Norse mythology. It's a tapestry woven from adventure, symbolism, and profound wisdom.
Not just entertainment, but something deeper.
Exactly. And it's what makes Thor such a compelling figure. He embodies strength, but he also has vulnerabilities. He makes mistakes. He's relatable.
Even as a god.
That's what allows us to connect with these stories even centuries later. It's about finding those universal truths that resonate across time and cultures. It's about finding that human element within the myth.
I'm ready to hear more about these specific stories and see what truths we can uncover. All right, let's uncover some of those truths. Which one of Thor's adventures stands out to you the most?
There are so many, but that story of Thor fishing for the Midgard serpent always gets me. It really captures his strength and his role as protector. Plus, it ties into those cycles we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, we touched on it briefly, but I want to hear more. What makes it so compelling?
It's just full of this vivid imagery and action. You really get a sense of Thor's power going up against Jormungandr, that serpent that wraps around the whole world. It's this ultimate clash between order and chaos.
Imagine being in that little boat, feeling that serpent pull. Must have been both terrifying and exhilarating.
Absolutely. And the story shows Thor's determination. Even against impossible odds, he almost pulls the serpent up. But the line snaps and Jormungandr gets away, setting the stage for that final showdown at Ragnarok.
So even though he loses that round, you know it's not over.
Right. It's this reminder that even the gods are part of these larger cycles, and even the strongest warriors face setbacks.
Powerful message about resilience, accepting what's out of your control.
Exactly. And for a story where Thor's mind gets put to the test, there's his encounter with Utgarda-Loki.
Who was that again?
This giant king, master of illusions, trickster. He sets these seemingly impossible tasks for Thor.
Okay, like what?
Well, he challenges Thor to drink from this huge horn, but it's secretly connected to the ocean.
Oh, wow.
Then he tries to lift this giant cat, but the cat is actually the Midgard serpent in disguise.
Hold on, so he's fighting the serpent again. Seems like that keeps happening.
It's a recurring theme, right? That struggle against chaos. But this time Thor gets outsmarted. Utgarda-Loki reveals the truth. He was using magic the whole time to make things seem possible.
That must have been humbling for Thor. Strength isn't always enough.
Exactly. You need wisdom and cunning, too. Being able to see through deception, navigate tricky situations. That's a lesson that's still relevant today, don't you think?
For sure. We're bombarded with information all the time. Got to be able to figure out what's real and what's not.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And for one last tale, one that mixes humor and cleverness, we got to go back to Thor as a bride.
Oh, the wedding crasher. I love that story.
Right. Remember Thor's hammer gets stolen?
By that giant.
Wham! And he demands Freyja as his bride to get it back.
So the gods dress Thor up as Freyja.
It's the perfect ridiculous plan. So there, Thor is this massive bride devouring oxen, drinking mead, scaring the giants with his less than ladylike behavior.
I could picture it.
And then when Thrym tries to kiss his bride, Thor gives him this look that could melt mountains.
The jig is up.
Thor grabs his hammer, unleashes his fury on those giants.
It's such a great moment. You know, Thor's cunning, his determination, it also kind of makes fun of those old gender roles. It shows he'll do whatever it takes.
Absolutely. And it's a story that makes you think, even laugh a little. It shows the power of humor and unconventional thinking to overcome obstacles.
It's been amazing exploring all these sides of Thor. The warrior, the protector, even the reluctant bride. We've seen his strength, his weaknesses, his humor, his commitment to protecting those he cares about.
And as we've seen, these stories aren't just entertainment. They give us a look into the Norse way of thinking about life, death, fate, the constant battle between order and chaos. They remind us that stories connect us to something bigger than ourselves and inspire us to face our own challenges. With courage, a little humor, and maybe even a touch of thunder.
So next time you see a storm brewing or hear a tale of a hammer-wielding hero, remember Thor and his legacy, a legacy that reminds them of the power of myth and the strength of the human spirit.